Great. All right. Well, we want to thank you for coming. We really appreciate you giving your time from your busy day to participate. So very much appreciated. I'm Amy Linnae, the project manager for Boston Parks and Recreation Department, overseeing this project, Harambee Park. And let's see, next slide. So just a few things we'll quickly go over. Please know that this meeting is being recorded, and that way we can post it to the project webpage. So it should be posted in about a week, and we'll add the link for the project webpage in the chat in case you'd like to view this presentation again or share it with your neighbors who are unable to attend. And the next slide. So we hope everyone will feel comfortable sharing their questions and comments verbally or in the chat. But you're also welcome to reach out to me directly via email if you'd like to provide additional comments that way or discuss the project further. And we'll add my email to the chat as well. Next slide. I think everyone's pretty familiar with Zoom these days, but if you have a question or comment during the presentation, feel free to add that into the chat and we'll address it after the presentation. And then if anyone's calling in on a phone, I don't think anyone is, but it's *9 to raise your hand or *6 to unmute and mute again. All right, so thank you once again for joining us. These are the topics we'll be covering this evening. So the project team introduction, the project overview, which includes the schedule, then the presentation, and we'll have a listening and discussion session, and then closing remarks and next steps. So then this is the project team. Once again, I'm Amy Linnae, project manager from Boston Parks. Joining me is Kathy Baker-Eclipse and Christine Brandeo, Community Outreach Coordinator. I don't think Eric James joined us, but he's from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, and he's a great resource for community concerns. And then Weston and Sampson is the landscape architecture firm on the project. So they started working on the master plan in 2015 and have worked on each design phase to date. So joining us from the design team, we have Amanda Gall, project manager, and Lainey Cohen, landscape designer. All right, so this is the second community meeting for phase 4 of the implementation of the Harambee Park master plan. So we'll do a quick summary of the master plan work in the presentation, and then tonight we're interested in your input on 2 potential features for the park, and that's a pump track and a dog park. So pump tracks are designed to be used with BMX bikes, skateboards, and scooters. They can be used by people of all ages, so young children to adults. A pump track was installed at Smith Playground in Alston, and it is very popular. So for a second pump track location in the city, Harambee might make sense just given it's geographically distant from Alston, and it would incorporate a new type of use at this park. So this tonight is an opportunity to have a conversation about it, hear the community's feelings. It's not yet funded. And then the dog park is something that has come up in community comments that we received after the last public meeting. And so let's see, we'll be gathering feedback during this meeting and then also through an online survey. And that link we'll share in the chat as well. And so looking at the schedule, the timeline for gathering feedback on the pump track is separate from the design work that's being done on the cricket fields. So we'll give you also an update on that cricket field plan, that concept plan, later in the presentation. So it looks like we have a question. Different types of will we be discussing the different types of pump tracks? At this point, we're looking a little bit more generally. We'll let the design team get into that, but we have some general guidelines on what they typically look like and what size. But we'll be having a second public meeting in late February, early March. That will be a chance, I think, to get certainly into more detail after we get the community feedback through this process. Oh, I see. Yeah. So I guess they're really designed to serve all of those three modes, the BMX bikes, skateboards, and the scooters. I think it'll be clear in the photo of an example where they're contoured in such a way that you can do jumps and things on a bike, but you can also do this sort of similar moves on a skateboard. We can certainly share some more resources for online videos and things like that. Okay. Next slide, we'll go through just quickly the components that go into public park design. So one is the community input, which we're gathering tonight, and through the online survey. In addition, safety guidelines and regulatory guidelines, such as ADA, City of Boston priorities, and parks and recreation goals, which we'll cover in the next two slides. And so the City of Boston priorities include expanding walkable access to parks, addressing equity, climate resilience, such as stormwater, extreme heat, health, housing, and community building. Next slide. And then the parks and recreation goals. So this includes creating spaces that are accessible and available to all, that have a diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses, that include meaningful and inclusive community engagement, incorporate adaptive and resilient landscapes, and promote connections. So with that, I will turn it over to Amanda Gull, Project Manager from Weston and Sampson.
Hi, all. So I won't spend too long on this portion because it's a recap of what we went through at the last meeting, but to give a little background on how the site has come together. Back in 2015, we started this master planning process and finalized the master plan report in 2017. Out of 6 phases, 3 are complete, and we are starting the 4th right now. Next slide, thank you. So phase 1 completed in 2018 consisted of an accessible playground, 2 basketball courts, a pathway which would connect to future phases as well. And then phase 2 completed in 2019 included 2 soccer fields, an ellipse, walking loop / outdoor classroom, a bioretention swale, and the primary central path that goes along the horizontal length of the park. And that is also has lighting and cameras along it as well. So then phase 3 includes a fenced in football field, a non-fenced in practice field, a larger walking ellipse that has distance markers on it, and then connecting paths to the primary central walk. Also fitness pods and retention basins. So now getting into the current phase, if you could just go to the next slide. So since our last meeting, we have been able to meet a few times with representatives from the cricket leagues and have made a few updates to the plan based on their feedback. We've shifted the fields over to accommodate for 2 full-size cricket fields. The one on the left will be lit along with the perimeter walking path along the street. The perimeter path is part of a larger loop that will eventually, after these 6 phases are complete, be a complete loop. And it is internal. It doesn't stay along the road. It just somewhat follows it. So the other amenities for the fields include the sight screens at the end of each cricket field, new scoreboards. One will be electronic, the other will be manual. Concrete pads for their storage containers, which will be located along Westview Ave. And bleachers, which can be accessed by the paths to maintain ADA compliance. So then some other park amenities that are included in this phase are cafe tables, bike racks, game tables, ellipse seating areas, drinking fountain, and proposed trees to provide some shade along the paths. All of these amenities will be located and gathered in nodes near the entrance and along the perimeter path. So then moving to the next slide. So we did just want to take a look at some of the larger portions of this phase. So obviously we have the cricket fields. The one on the left, as I said, will be lit. The one on the right will not. And then we're going to incorporate more lighting along the perimeter paths. And then we have new pathways going around, as I had mentioned, and then also running perpendicular up to the central path to create that connection. And then we're going to have one central node or entry node for this phase that includes the ellipse seating, which you've seen in some prior phases, along with some cafe tables and just a place for people to gather. We're going to try to incorporate some of those perpendicular lines that you've seen in the prior phases as well. And then not everybody likes to gather where everyone else is. So we are including some ancillary areas that have seating opportunities as well. Along the path as it goes up to the center path again, but closer to the school side. And we are including more seating, bike racks, and ellipse seating at that connection as well. So now I will pass the baton to Lainey, who's going to go through some dog park and pump track feasibility items.
Good evening. So as you know, we're here mostly to discuss the dog park and pump track feasibility. As Amy mentioned, there is not yet funding, but we still want to hear the community's thoughts and see how this could play out in future phases. So this graphic is just showing what size the pump track and dog park are recommended to be at comparatively to the different fields on the site. So as you can see, the cricket field is 130,000 square feet, which would be about 13 pump tracks or dog parks. So both dog park and pump tracks are recommended to be about 10,000 square feet. This is about a seventh of a football field or a fourth of a baseball field. They should be relatively flat. The pump track will obviously have undulations, and I'll show some precedent images in just a minute. And the dog park, you would want it to be away from existing trees so they could survive and not get, wasted on, as people would say at a dog park. And so these are the relative sizes. So there is some space on the site to fit these in. It's just more about A, community need, and then B, funding sources. So a few images of the pump tracks that we've been looking at as precedents. This large one on the left side, this is Smith Playground in Alston. So this is a ways away from where we are at Harambee, but we wanted to show it as it is the largest pump track precedent in the area. So you can see this is a great use for multimodal transportation, all manual, not electric. So it's safe and kids and families can come together. And then on the side, you can see a few other examples of what those look like in other states, but they are largely undulating, very graded, with lots of different variations and topography, which makes it fun and challenging for people on bikes, scooters, or skateboards. And then the dog park, second of all, these are all Boston area dog parks. So DeFilippo Dog Park, which you can see on the left side, that's an example of using more artificial turf as the base material. Standards go, rice stone is preferred, as you can see on the left or the right two images, excuse me, just in terms of standing up to use and human and animal use, as well as weather. So these are all in the Boston area and show you a variety of different sizes of dog parks. We haven't designed anything inside as far as benches or obstacles or play amenities go, but that would be something we would love community feedback on. And so the dog park, when you build it, it's not just a fence and open area. We would include amenities for dogs and their owners. So going from left to right, you can see we would include a doggy bag dispenser and trash bin for animal waste. And then we would have some seating for humans and the occasional dog. Next, there would be a dog drinking fountain that could also serve as humans. That would also help with cleaning off dogs as necessary. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the rice stone surfacing is preferred as far as maintenance goes and just holding up over time. So with that, I think we'll turn it back over to the community. Amy, unless you have any final words or thoughts.
Thanks, Lainey. Yeah, that's great. And I think we've gotten some good comments in the chat. So outreach to teens regarding the pump track. And we haven't done that yet, but I think that's a great comment. Reach out to Mattapan and some suggestions there. And then will the dog park have obstacle courses to keep the dogs engaged? Yeah, I think we can certainly look at that. I think the Filippo example had some obstacles, especially in there, right, for dogs to move through, little tunnels and things like that.
Amy, if I can, I'd like to put a little bit of context. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'd like to put a little bit of context around where some of the pump track conversations came from. I was the project manager that installed the project in Alston at Smith Playground, and it is very well received. And we have, a few years ago, I think when we were starting talking about phase 3, a group of bike advocates approached me and asked if there was possibility of expanding that program to somewhere else in the city. And Harambee was identified as a space that would be large enough to accommodate something like that. So we thought, it seems like it's going to go okay in Alston, and if it does, where else in the city should we put it? Where else would be different, far enough away, but might be and might add something different to the community. So that's kind of the origin of where this came from, and I think Alston and Dorchester are different neighborhoods, clearly, and I think that the needs of Harambee may be different than the needs in Alston, and so I think we wanted to have a conversation about whether people were really excited about it, whether there were concerns about it, and whether and what do we need to take into consideration as we think about whether or not this is feasible for the site, and whether or not it's feasible given some of the other issues going on here and in the neighborhood in general. So just wanted to put a little context around that for people to think about. If we don't have funding for it right now, but if it's something that is overwhelmingly supported, I think we can look towards how can we get this funded and built.
Great, thanks, Kathy.
I meant to mute myself.
Okay, and then it looks like we have some dog park specific questions. So who will monitor the dog park, safety, health? I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily anyone that's set to monitor that unless a neighborhood group wants to take that on. I think it's, and maybe Kathy can chime in on this too. Sorry. I think it's, yeah, how we've sort of dealt with that in the past, or.
Yeah, a lot of the successful dog parks in neighborhoods, it's the community that comes to us and says we think we really need a dog park here, and we're a group of organized. Some are more organized than others. Some are a Facebook group, but they may be working towards getting some kind of more formal organization going, or it might just stay kind of a loose organization. But we found that the ones that are most successful are the ones that are really kind of ground up grassroots. There's an invested group of people who are shepherding it through, who are going to be good stewards, kind of practice the good behavior that we want to see, neighbors working with neighbors to encourage good behavior with dogs, making dog friends, not dog enemies. And are generally going to support themselves. So I don't know if there's that kind of Facebook group or loose organization of dogs in the neighborhood. So that's something that is beneficial also for a dog park as well.
Great, thank you. And then a question about lighting in the seating areas, dog park and pump track. I think we'd look at that a little bit more. There's certainly lighting along the walkways in the park now. I think the pump track would probably have something similar to court lighting and similar schedule. That's certainly something that we'd look at a little bit more. I think same with the dog park. So you are able to use it after 5 o'clock in the winter when it's so dark. Let's see, thank you, Michelle. Positive comment. And let's see, will all these be open 24 hours a day? I mean, I think the lighting schedule is usually, I want to say 10 o'clock they go off. So it wouldn't really be intended to be used after that. And then let's see. AJ, a link to the manual scoreboard being considered for the second cricket field. Concerned about its location relative to the bleachers and needing a dedicated individual to operate it. That's a great question. Yeah, we haven't selected a model for that scoreboard, but I think your comment is a good one that I think we'll have to look at that, right? How it's accessed to update it. So thank you for that. Let's see, Fatima, we have a high number of teens that ride bikes, BMX on streets. This would give them a place for them to ride. Yeah, I think that's a great comment. We have a growing population here in Dorchester. This is very needed. And I think, Meridina, is that specifically talking about the pump track? Let's see. And then, oh, dogs, okay. Let's see. Outreach to neighborhood groups. Let's see, the GMNC, is that? I'm not sure if I know which group that is.
Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's a great comment. Thank you. Let's see, maintenance cleaning of the dog park. Yeah, again, maybe Kathy, is that something that parks maintenance deals with, or is it sort of left to community members to?
It is, we have both models. I think clearly we would prefer the one that requires less of our time, but I think we're exploring what the different models are. So I think if there's a strong commitment from the community to maintain the park, and it's largely around, Peters Park has I think it has a contract for disinfecting the stone. It's a little bit different than the stone surfacing at Ronan and I don't think it's the rice stone, so it may require a little bit different level of maintenance. So it's not a huge amount of maintenance, but we would take care of capital repairs. But if there are things, like if there's a waste cleanup, I think the dog owners are responsible for cleaning up their own waste, their own dog pet waste. But it can sometimes benefit from some disinfectant, especially in a very dense neighborhood like Peters Park in the South End.
Great, thank you. Okay, so yeah, comments about conversations from neighborhood associations.
Hi, how are you? My name is Fatima Ali Salam. I'm the chair for the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council.
Oh, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, with a few things. I have been to a number of had conversations as well as meetings where there were interest in I don't know if you call them dog runs or what the term is. We do have a high number of people who have small dogs in particular, but there is an issue of people not cleaning up after dogs that we have, and I don't know how that is managed at other parks, even if it is a dog run, how that's done. The other thing is because of the high number of teens that we have who have bikes, they don't have a lot of space to, BMX bikes are meant to, I grew up with them. They're meant to have space to go and jump everywhere, and you don't want it in spaces. There was a problem before, like in the Arboretum, because there was damage done to tree roots systems. The other problem is without the real teen engagement, I would think that you would want to have them you would want to have them put input in it, just because one of these are public parks and there isn't really enough engagement done directly with teens. So much of the biking conversation has been, quite frankly, with 20 and 30-year-old something people, and mainly Caucasians. It's not about on Blue Hill Avenue, and it is due because there isn't really been true engagement with people, the teens in our community, and their voices are being drowned out by the adults. And in order to counter that, we have to be actively going to their schools, the high schools. There's only a certain number of high schools, and the teens they all attend them pretty much. So that is another source. The Mattapan Teen Center is very popular, large number of teens, and they do get the word out. They're very active in our community. There is a youth focus group in Mattapan Food and Fitness. They also, and there you have different, sports teams that you can reach out to, Mattapan Patriots, etc. But they're the ones who really should be asked, because we're hoping for more teenagers to get physically active, instead of sitting in front of video games and the rest. So I would want to hear from them I wish I had that skill to be popping wheelies and all the other stuff, but my 57-year-old body isn't quite up for that right now. So I defer to those who are, much cooler than I. But, I overall, it looks very nice. And I had to read up on what a pump track was. That's why my question is which one, because the scooters, I would not want to see them in competition with the BMX bikes. The scooters are an issue in the community, all across the city, of course, but I would hope that there really would be something that does emphasize for teens riding bikes, and a nice place for them to go and congregate and just hang out. The other thing is I really don't see things geared toward, the Boston Raiders. Swings, like the oval swings on Lawn on D. Too often when you look at the parks, there's nothing for teen girls. As a mother of daughters.
Did you see that article too?
No, I didn't see an article on it. I just am. I'm one of 4 daughters. I grew up with swings, but every park you really don't. if the swings that are available are the swings that are available for small children. They're not really made for teenagers. So,
Yeah, I think there was an article in Bloomberg that came across my transom this past week. That was that those
no, I didn't.
the
say this.
oval
I mean, it's
oval
fun.
swings
Yeah.
from the lawn on D were are very attractive for teen girls. And
Yeah,
and that
my
is-
kids ride them. My daughters have been on them. Yeah, they're a big hit. Yeah, but that's all I want to say. Unfortunately, I can't stay. I do have to pop onto a zoning meeting. I know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's great feedback. So we appreciate that.
And
Can
I
we
will
be in
do the
touch with
survey.
you?
Yes,
Can we be in touch with
absolutely.
you to try to get some good contacts for those teen groups that you mentioned?
Yeah, I'll put my my contact information in the chat.
And I think Christine probably also has it as well,
Oh,
but that would be great to
probably.
try to get, maybe we can try to do something, directly with the teens, go to them, talk
Yeah.
about it. And yeah,
They would welcome that. I'm sure.
yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Let's see. Okay. Meridina, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. So our neighborhood association tried to get a dog park in behind Cotton Square on a street in an area that they can't build a house on because they just can't build. It's right next to a train track and all this other stuff. When we were doing the research for the dog park, when we went and spoke to Peters Park, and so what they have for their maintenance system is an irrigation system underneath, and so what it does, like you can pick up the feces of the dog, but you can't pick up dog urine. And so that like saturates the ground and it kills everything that's underneath it, anything that wants to grow around it. That's what dog urine does. Owner of 2 big dogs. And so when we were looking at this and when we were talking to the Peters Park, the gentleman who was overseeing it or a friend of the dog park and the gentleman that was there making sure that dogs didn't fight and owners were doing what they were supposed to do, which is also really important because there are some dogs that are aggressive towards little dogs. Little dogs are more aggressive towards big dogs. Big dogs often are not allowed in dog parks because of their size. They think they're lap dogs, but they're not. And so what he was saying is that when they did the funding for their park, when they started doing the fundraising for their park, they at that time, so this is like 7 years ago, they had to, when he was talking to me, they had to fundraise for over $1 million in maintenance, like into the future, because of the irrigation system that they had underneath the dog park. And at that time, there was only one service in the state of Massachusetts that would come out and actually remove dog feces and the urine like once a month from the dog park, which was very expensive. And so we were also looking at the type of gravel, the sandstone and all of that you all had mentioned here. And so my concern, again, an owner of 2 very large dogs, my concern here is that, is this dog park going to be someone going to be there during the day? Like, are they going to make sure that the dogs are vaccinated? Because if dogs are not vaccinated, they're carrying diseases, and other people, they need their dogs. They might be service dogs or anything else. Like, what is the maintenance? What is the plan for the dog park? Is it just willy-nilly? Anybody can come in, and if your dog is aggressive, then oh well, it sucks for you if your dog, crosses path with this dog. But in Dorchester, we have a very high population of dogs since the pandemic. And a lot of these dogs aren't trained. Police don't come out when they need to, when the dog, it's just, I'm worried about that aspect of the dog park, because as it is, people are afraid of dogs in general. And so we need to care for them as well, not just for the owners and the dogs themselves. That's it.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you. Yeah, I think, I think one piece of that that may help is having a dog park that has the small dog and big dog areas. So at least, for the smaller ones, they feel comfortable. But I think in terms of sort of daily oversight, it's not something that necessarily, we can take on. And I think going back to that question of who's managing it, it's maybe an ideal situation, something that is kind of comes up from the community, a group that's interested in taking that on. But I think it's tough to, certainly, like you're saying, dogs that aren't vaccinated. I mean, I think that's just a challenging, situation when people aren't being responsible for their pets. And it's threatening to other dogs and human safety too. So I don't think I have a solution for that necessarily.
Yeah, I think those are real challenges that that all the dog parks face, is that we don't have staff either in the Parks Department or in Animal Control, which is under the Parks Department, to staff these spaces to make sure that only vaccinated dogs are in there, or that that dogs are behaving. These are our community spaces. They're spaces for the community to be, and it's not that we're not present, but we're not present there at the level that that kind of monitoring would be needed. So we'll have maintenance staff there on a regular basis, but that regular may be a few times a week, and to remove the trash, mow the lawn, but it's not at a checking dog vaccinations at the gate before they're entering. So that's just, and those dogs, frankly, they exist in the community already, but I understand that it is, they're interacting more in an enclosed space. So.
Okay. Let's see. So parking spaces, how are you going to manage the parking spaces when all sports like cricket, football, and soccer are playing at the same time? Well, there is, for part of phase 6 for Harambee, there is a parking lot in that phase. So it's on Westview, closer to the tennis facility. I understand that it's, maybe that's helpful to see. I think other than that, it's really relying on on-street parking on Talbot and Westview, and I think the issue with parking is that we don't want to turn over a significant portion of the park, turning that into parking, because then it's really defeating the purpose of the park itself. So it's trying to find a balance of some spaces, but I don't know that it's enough for every sport to be happening at once, for everyone to be parking there. But we hope that people utilize those on-street spaces as much as possible.
It will not be enough for all of those sports. It may not be enough for one sport, but it will take some of the pressure off. Hopefully, take some of the pressure off the on-street parking for those neighbors who do have to deal with the nuisance of those double parking issues. If there is double parking, depending on the street, I think that's a safety issue. So definitely call 911 if that is occurring. That is a safety issue that should be addressed through enforcement, not the Parks Department. And the parking lot was laid out and intended to be a space where buses could pull in. So buses that are bringing players from other towns to play here for the Raiders or for the cricket leagues. So that a space big enough that a bus can get in, get people off the vehicle safely off the street, and have the space to turn around. So that is part of the intention of those parking spaces, is to take some of the pressure off the street, and have a space for bus turnaround for visitors, visiting teams.
Okay, and then we have a cricket specific question about the pitch. Amanda, did we have a final material on that, or?
So Everything that I've heard was that the clay, predominantly clay mixture is preferred. If something else is preferred, it would be good to hear the feedback that it's desired and why. This is the time to do it.
Okay. And then let's do the timeline for phase 6. Let's see. I don't know if we have a set date for that.
I was just trying to respond in the comments.
Oh, okay.
So no, I said it's much easier to say. I don't think there's a timeline yet for phase 5 or 6 yet. Then neither are in the capital plan at this moment, but I'm hoping we can finish 4 and then move into 5 or 6. And the intention with phase 6 is to keep the 2 basketball courts that were built in phase 1, rebuild the netball court, and add 2 exterior tennis courts.
And then phase 5 has
I think has a new basketball court. Yeah. 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's everyone's questions that are in the chat. But if there's anything that didn't get answered, please let us know.
Somebody had a hand raised. Yeah.
AJ.
Yeah. Hi, this is AJ. I just wanted to respond to Amanda's earlier comment about the pitch. I think Amy had written to you as well with regards to the mat. So with the clay, it primarily means we put a jute mat over the clay pitch, which works great. It's a bit inconvenient in terms of it requires at least 30 to 45 minutes of setup time and taking it down at the end of the day. And most of the teams outside of the fields outside of the Boston area will have a concrete strip with an artificial turf or carpet, which makes it super convenient for it to even dry out in the first few months when the cricket season starts, May and June, where we see quite a bit of rain and games do tend to get washed out. And so having that concrete strip with the AstroTurf or whatever you call it, right? It tends to dry out quite quicker. So it means you can have a game versus it being a complete washout. So I was wondering whether that could be a consideration for at least one of the fields.
Yeah, you know, we did look at that from your email, and I think the understanding that we had is that it was a little bit considered a little bit less safe, just given the surface, the hardness of the concrete, and so what we sort of determined is that wasn't maybe the ideal material. And talking with some of the other cricket folks, but I think if the mat is out there now, you know, if that's still workable, I understand there's the time involved in setting it up, but I think there's probably a preference for that from what our understanding is.
Yeah, no, I think the mat from it, if the underlying surface is well prepared, then the mat also works. I just thought that having it, one having the mat versus the other, it also offers 2 different playing surfaces, which adds to the variety of the game. The strip that you play on has a huge impact on the kind of game that it offers. So I mean, I don't know how much of the of cricket we want to get into details of in terms of how competitive it gets depending on the nature of the surface, but that definitely adds a different dimension to it. It's not a deal breaker, obviously, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Any final comments or thoughts? Looks like we have a hand raised.
Hi, good afternoon. So I just have a comment, just to say that I live across the street from the park. And before the renovations were done, I would utilize the Franklin Park Zoo area for walking, especially in the summer. And now that the changes have been done and it's been upgraded, my mother and I and my nephew, we absolutely love going to Harambee Park and walking around. We walked like the entire length of the area in the summer months, so it's absolutely great. And in summer, there's tons of young folks that uses the park. There's basketball happening. There's so many activities happening there that I think it's a wonderful addition, and I'm looking forward to the new updates that are coming, especially seeing that there's so many different sporting events that are being recognized. There's cricket, tennis, basketball. It's a great addition, and I'm looking forward to the updates. So thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. It's great to hear that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right. Okay, so I think that will wrap it up for us. So these are a few ways to, provide additional comments or thoughts. There's a survey, which I did put in the chat up at the beginning. It's pretty brief, I think 5 minutes, just a few questions. And then the project webpage where we'll keep updates and where this recording will be posted. And then my email address again. So happy to, if you think of anything, later on, please email me and let me know. The survey, I think we'll probably have open for maybe 3 weeks or so. That's a vague deadline, but we'll say, I think we're kind of saying February 9th for now. That's like 3 weeks. So if you do have a chance to fill that out, we'd really appreciate it, and share it with anyone who might be interested in the project. So I want to say thank you again so much for attending and participating in this meeting. It's really helpful to have the feedback. So everyone, I hope you have a good night.